harassed by demons. They say I'm not good enough, speaking lies to take my freedom, telling me my time is up. I feel lost like a melody that's looking for a song.
Welcome back to Pure Prison, everybody. I'm Shy, your host. Today we have Vanessa roll in. She has an incredible story about her son, and we're going to hear that today. And we're also going to hear her goal and what she wants to tell you. So I'm going to bring her in. Hi, Vanessa. How are you
Hello.
today? It's
Good.
such a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and for giving me the opportunity to tell Dakota's story.
Oh my, are you kidding? When I met you and we started to talk back and forth, it was just about the criminal justice system a little bit. And you didn't share that right away with me. And to me, that meant that there's a spot in your heart still where that really touches, and you kind of hold on to that a little bit, and don't share it as much as I think you should. And that's why you're here today, because people need to hear your story. So
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and go right on into Dakota, please.
Oh, well, I am, by trade, I'm a registered nurse, and I've been very blessed to work in this field for almost 30 years of providing for geriatric care. I am the mom of two sons. Dakota was 25 when he passed away, so I guess you could say he will be forever 25. And Derek, my other son, is 23, and he lives in Iowa and living his best life. Married to the man of my dreams. I always laugh and say you have to kiss a few frogs to get to your prince. So by all, I guess, from looking at it from the outside in, my life has been pretty blessed. We've lived the normal American dream. Like I said, I'm a registered nurse. The kids all went to school and had things that opportunities to be successful. And Dakota's senior year of high school, Dakota was always a very liked child. Every teenager gets in little bits of trouble. I say every teenager, kind of experiments with things, and Dakota was no different. But I never really had a lot of behavioral problems from him. And we started his senior year of high school. We had goals, we had dreams. He was going to college. He wanted to be an engineer. He was kind of bouncing between whether or not he wanted to go straight to college or whether he wanted to join the Marines. Just an all-American boy. He loved buckle jeans and A&E shirts, and he loved to drive his Mustang, and had his friends. And so when his behaviors started changing to, like I said, he was never aggressive, never disrespectful to me. And then I can remember it seemed like a period of over a 2-week time, very irritable, very short-tempered, still never missed school. We didn't have any kind of attendance issues. His grades were perfect. And then it was on a Tuesday night. He was sitting on my laptop and he was looking for new rims and tires for his car. I'll never forget that night. And it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I had glanced over at him and he was asleep at the laptop, which now, fast forward the 11 years that I have been dealing with this, I know that he was nodding out. And so I just had been dealing with 2 weeks of just attitude and so now this, and so I was yelling at him, go get you a shower, you need to get ready and get some sleep, get ready for bed. Well, I had sent my younger son down to his brother's room because he loved to be the spy. He always wanted to see what his brother was doing. And so I told Derek, I said, go down and see if you can find anything in your brother's room. He was my little Oh, my little detective. Well, Dakota was in the shower. Derek come back up and said, nothing out of the ordinary. Well, I knew something was wrong. Something was different. It was odd. The atmosphere in my house was totally different. So I went downstairs, and Dakota had a desktop computer. So the very first place that I went is I thought I'm going to pull the internet history and see, if there was anything that I should be alarmed of or suspicious of. When I pulled out that keyboard, it was September 8th, 2010, and there lie 3 insulin syringes. Nobody is diabetic in my family. Nobody had a reason to possess those syringes. And I think at that time, I panicked, I froze. I knew something was wrong. Something felt very dirty. But to be honest with you, back in 2010, I had no idea. I was very naive that heroin, I guess, had made its way back on the scene. I would quickly find out that it was being marketed and targeted to suburban kids. It's a very long story about his addiction, but it's a similar story to what everyone goes through. When I really found out the origin, it was people in my family and family friends that I had trusted to be a positive influence on Dakota. Found out that the addiction started with Percocets, and for a 16-year-old kid to be able to hang around with 30-year-old friends that were family friends to us, again, I trusted them. I found out quickly that you come help me work on my car and I'll get you high. Anybody that would offer 80 milligrams of OxyContin to a 16-year-old child, in my mind, is just as much of a criminal as Dakota would soon be charged with. So when I found out that it was actually heroin that we were dealing with, I did a few things. Keep in mind, I really only had a short period of a month and a half before crime and jail sentences and all of that hit the scene. At first, I was very ashamed. I think any family is ashamed to be able to say that your child is a drug addict, especially, when you've raised them differently than that. I was afraid to tell anybody, shame that it was my son that was doing it, shame that I'm a nurse. I should have known. I should be able to deal with this problem. And secondly, what would people think? So Dakota was in the top 10, 15% of his class. So I had to be very careful. I was very embarrassed to reach out to the school. And so the weekend after I had found the syringes, I naively thought that we will do a detox at home. We'll dry out here at home. And you're a smart boy. Whatever you're messing with, experimenting with, you can stop this and our family can move on and we can put this behind us. So that Friday night, we prepared for a heroin detox. And, by, I would say, 2 a.m. in the morning, the violent vomiting, the nausea, the dry heaves, the restless leg, it was flu times 10. And there was nothing that I could do to alleviate any of those symptoms, which now I know is dope sickness. Watching him go through that, and I'm going to try not to cry. I'm ashamed to say that the tears in his eyes, it was so violent. There were times that I really thought, my God, I can't keep watching him like this. I mean, there was times that I had fleeting ideas of whatever he's on, I am just going to go buy some just to help put him out of this misery. I can't believe how naive I was to thinking that, all right, we've survived to Sunday. I mean, I've cleaned more sheets and towels and emptied more buckets of vomit and cleaned bathrooms. And by Sunday, the dope sickness had gone away. And I just really felt like that you're a smart boy. You will never go back to what made you get in this situation to begin with. Well, I was very naive. 7 days later, he's back to sticking those dirty needles in his arms again. And that night, he was pulled over. There were 3 other boys in the car. There were 4 boys, 4 syringes. And one of my mistakes that I made as a parent is not really a mistake, but I always taught my kids to accept responsibility for your actions. I guess I failed to teach them that you accept responsibility for your actions. You don't have to accept responsibility for everyone else's. So Dakota was 17 at that time. He knew the one boy would lose his scholarship. The other one was a pretty prominent name in our community, and the other one faked a drug overdose so he could be taken to the ER. So Dakota accepted responsibility and said that all 4 syringes were his. The other 3 boys basically were sent home. And we found out a week later that Dakota would be charged with a Class C felony for possession of hypodermic needles. And pretty much he was arrested. The sheriff called me and said that they had a warrant for Dakota's arrest. That they had to arrest him and take him to juvenile hall. The one thing I asked the sheriff is, please don't embarrass him in front of his friends. He's not going to run. He's not going to do anything crazy. And he didn't. They just called Dakota down. And that night, I had to go to the juvenile hall and basically sign him in, and there was no getting him out. Let me back up a little bit. In that month that I had before he got arrested, I eventually did call his guidance counselor and said, we have a problem here. My little weekend detox didn't work. He's back to using again, and I need to share our family's dirty little secret because I needed to put Dakota into a drug recovery program. We did that. We did the 3-week stay in a local substance abuse program. They did teach him a lot of things, but it just wasn't nowhere near long enough. Again, he got out. It always seemed like it was 7 days. 7 days he's using again. And then that's when the sheriff had to arrest him, and he went to juvenile hall. And because of his age, when he turned 18, we had to go to a court hearing, and he was moved to, I always call it big boy jail. And, everything that you think, my mind was reeling. I'm thinking, this is a barely 18-year-old kid. He's going to jail with hardened criminals. Every bad thing that I could think of, it was just a fear for me. I will tell you that experience of he spent the months and days, I think he spent 6 months in big boy jail, as I call it. Honestly, the men that he came into contact with there, I think they saw a younger version of themselves. They took Dakota under his wing. It will be forever indebted to the handful of men that really embraced Dakota. They taught him a lot about jail and prison etiquette. They gave him a crash course into growing up and being a man very quickly. The other thing is that I was very grateful for is our local jail has a in jail substance abuse program. And it was a 6-month program. Dakota was accepted and able to go through that. They focus a lot on cognitive behavioral therapy. He was learning. I really felt like when he got out, we got this. To make a very long story short, he did get out. He relapsed. He was sent back for a probation violation. He was sent back to a very minimum security prison for 6 months. He got out, relapsed again, sent to a minimum security prison, this time with razor wires. He was sent there for 18 months. I know on Sunday I got a call that he had been jumped in the bathroom by 6 people and was beaten pretty bad. So prison is a very violent place. It's someplace that, nobody wants their child to go to. He spent 18 months. He got out. And I really wish I could say that I had belief this time that things were going to be different, but I had been burned by heroin. I had been burned by the lies of a drug addict. I've been jaded, I guess. So I really didn't believe that it was going to stick this time. However, I had no idea what the next 5 months held for us. He got out in January. He was working because of his felony background. He was only able to get, minimum wage paying jobs. And the deal is that if you get up every morning, your feet hit the floor and you were working and trying to make a difference, trying to be a good member of society, if you run out of money, you call me and I will make sure that you don't go without anything. And it was going really well. And at the end of April, he had stayed sober from January till April. And when I saw him, I knew that he had relapsed. And this time it was bad. It was very, very bad. Dakota had learned how to commit daytime burglaries. I always say when you go to jail, if you don't have a deep criminal mindset, you will when you get out, because you'll learn from the best of the best. So I did not know at that time, but he was under surveillance. There was a crime spree of about a 2 to 3 week time period where homes in the area was being broken into. And so basically, the ugly part of our story, I'm very shameful of this, but, you have to tell it all. So for about 2 or 3 weeks time, in order to satisfy his $500 a week heroin addiction, he would knock on a home. And if no one was there, he would check to make sure the door was locked, because I guess, your homeowner's insurance won't pay if it's not locked. He would lock the door, kick the door in, and he would take things like televisions, gold, guns, those kinds of things, and he would take them to a local pawn shop. Then he would go to the inner city and buy heroin. So the cops caught on to this. And May 21st, it's about 11 o'clock, and I get a call from Dakota. And all he says to me is, Mom, I love you, but they're shooting at me. And at that time, I knew nothing about the daytime burglaries. I knew nothing about the sting that he was being watched. I knew none of that. All I knew is that my son just called and somebody was shooting at him. So we sat and we waited. This was a pretty big deal. It was all over the local media of our local community. I will tell you that I think that the media made a much sexier story of it than what it really was. He was supposedly involved in a high-speed chase with 4 undercover police officers. He was apprehended and went to the local police station. He finally called me about 4 o'clock that night, and I at least then knew that he was alive and he was in the jail cell. And I was screaming at him, telling him, "You better be glad the police got you, because if I would have got you, I think I would have killed you myself." It was the worst 4 hours of my life. So this brings us to the involvement with the criminal justice system. We knew what Dakota had done was wrong. We never downplayed what he did. We knew that he was in trouble. But, I have been told many, many times that, you don't talk to police officers without an attorney present. So I quickly retained an attorney, and Dakota was told to not speak to anybody until the attorney got there. And so he didn't. He just kept telling me he wanted legal representation. The gentleman that was with him that day complied and gave a statement. He ended up serving, 15, 18 months, something like that. And then Dakota, we went through about a year of back and forth with the prosecutor. And, we kept saying, because our attorney kept saying this is bad, we don't really know what they're going to do. And so we went back and forth, and we kept saying, just offer them a 40-year sentence. I mean, he got charged with 5 burglaries of a home, which is very big deal to those 5 families. Their TV, their guns, their gold can all be replaced, but we knew that their sense of security could not. And Dakota had a debt that he needed to pay. It was a lot more than the $40,000 of restitution. He needed to be able to provide those people a sense of security. So he was a 19-year-old kid, and we kept begging, give him a 40-year sentence. He'll serve 20. He'll be 39 when he gets out. To me, that's a lot of time to pay for those 5 burglaries. Wouldn't do it. I also had researched, and I found in which we had talked about this, I found a substance abuse program in Hawaii. My attorney laughed when he said, the only island they're sending your son to is Alcatraz. They're not sending him to Hawaii. But I had done a lot of research on this substance abuse program, and they were averaging about a 73 to 79% success rate, whereas, most of your drug rehabs are about a 13. Yes, Habitat in Hawaii averages about a 73% success rate. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Whereas,
go ahead.
Yes. When you go to a 3-week or a 1-week substance abuse program, their success rate is about 11 to 13%. And so, my offer to the prosecutor was give Dakota jail time, give him whatever he needs, but I am begging, I had talked to the director. Let's put him in this program. He will be out of the community. He'll be out of taxpayers' dollars, hair, but he'll have a chance at kicking this addiction that is overrunning his life. Wouldn't even entertain the idea. So at the end of the year, they had pretty much told Dakota his only option was to go in and plead open at the mercy of the court. The court would see that these crimes were fueled from a substance abuse problem. They would see that this is a crime spree. They'll take into understanding his age, etc. And I totally trusted the justice system. I, have been raised to trust police officers, to trust judges, and so we did. And I will tell you that when the judge read the 5 counts, and he was charged with a Class B burglary, and each one was given a 20-year sentence. And when she got up to 68 years, because they did all of his consecutive, not concurrent.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
I felt like the oxygen just totally left my body. I could not believe they were sending this kid to a maximum security prison for 68 years. There were some things that was said on the stand by some of the undercover officers that did not match the conversations that I had personally had with them, that the judge used as mitigating factors. It was just so much. It was beyond anything I could have even imagined. When I see people who have murdered people, raped people, have committed heinous crimes towards people, receive less time than this.
Mm-hmm.
Our attorneys kept saying, Vanessa, this is ridiculous. He'll win an appeal. It's going to be okay. I got a call one day from a reporter with the New York Times. They had picked up Dakota's story. They could not believe how heinous his sentence was. So they ran part of Dakota's story. We had to be careful because we were in the middle of an appeal with that. But fast forward a year later, we lost our appeal. He was still going to carry the 68-year sentence. I had been told from the prosecutor, or at least made to believe, that if Dakota pled open to the judge and pretty much took what the judge gave, that any other counties that had pending charges against Dakota, they were all willing to pretty much put them to rest. I mean, a 68-year sentence is pretty heinous. 2016, a neighboring prosecutor decided that he wanted to get his bite in as well. And before it was all over with, in June of 2016, Dakota was looking at roughly anywhere from 80 to 108 years in prison. I get a call. Sorry.
It's okay.
On the 27th of June, that they had found my son unresponsive in a prison cell alone. Well, first they said there had been an accident. And so I was, prison is a bad place. It's rough. So I was totally thinking, he's been in a fight, he's been stabbed, cut, beat up pretty bad, but he's still alive. I knew they couldn't tell me where he had been transferred to, so I just kept screaming and saying, what happened? Where is he? Is he okay? And the officer just kept saying, I'm sorry. And so finally I just started screaming. And I said, are you trying to tell me my son is dead? And he said, yes. And so I asked, when did this happen? I was expecting maybe an hour or two prior, but no, he had passed away the night before at 6:30, and they were notifying me 13 hours later. And I would quickly find out that Dakota did commit suicide. He was always terrified of fentanyl. And somehow in a maximum security prison in a cell, isolated, that you're only allowed out for an hour or so a day, somehow he got a hold of a pretty potent dose of fentanyl that did exactly what he wanted. So I have been stuck with, for the last almost 2 years, trying to clean the pieces of this puzzle up. There's so many things to Dakota's story that I just don't really know where I fit in. I'm a mom of a drug addict, which I hate that word, drug addict. And I've learned so much about drug addiction. I've learned so much about what the people who battle with that every single day have gone through. And I have learned an empathy and a sympathy in my heart for those people that, had I never went through this experience, I would have never had before. And it's my greatest opportunity to be able to tell people, nobody asks for a drug addicted Barbie when they're 5 years old. Nobody has on their kindergarten, what do I want to be when I grow up? Nobody says I want to be a heroin junkie. And so, that was my son's story, and I will spend the rest of my life educating people that, they didn't ask for this. There's something chemically that I can take a Percocet and not get high off of it, and somebody else can take a Percocet and it does something chemically to their body and eventually takes over. But the bigger part for me is that I'm heartbroken. I do feel like that I would still have my son had he been given a just sentence. Like I said, I've never been one that we've ever downplayed what Dakota did. He does have victims. My heart breaks for them, knowing that they came home to their home and it was vandalized and burglarized and what they had to live through. But nobody's ever going to convince me that a 68 to 108 year sentence was ever just and it was ever fair. There's a lot of things involving this story that I lay in bed at night and I feel like that the criminal justice system is just as guilty of committing crimes as the criminals that they are supposed to be putting away or housing. I reached out to the prison a lot I just wanted answers. I wanted answers on, number one, how did he get fentanyl? I wanted answers on why didn't they call me for 12 hours? I wanted answers on, the Indiana Department of Correction policy is he should have been under surveillance every hour, and he wasn't. A guard didn't find him, an inmate worker did. What if he would have been found at 4 o'clock, or he would have been found at 5 o'clock and not 6:30? Maybe my son would still be here. I'm really tired of the way that, elected officials, I've reached out to governors, I've reached out to our governor, I've reached out to congressmen, senators, and, getting a return call back is, it just doesn't happen. People are thrown away in prison, and their families are thrown away in prison, and it just is what it is. But unfortunately, Dakota's story is over, but I'm in contact every week with moms whose kids are still going through the same thing. The sentencing is unfair, it's unjust. The environment that they live in is inhumane at times, and nobody is talking about it. And so for you, your platform, everything that you were doing, and the fact that you took time to listen to my story, which mine is one of thousands out there, but the fact that you are giving people like me a chance to be able to talk, I'm forever indebted. And if something good can come from Dakota's story, it will be worth it to me in the end. I will tell you that one of the things that I had talked to Dakota a lot about is surrendering, and whether it's NAAA or church or whatever, people have to believe in a higher power. And for me, that higher power is, I believe in God. And, Dakota was a 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old boy. I've sent him more Bibles in prison than you could ever imagine. And he just never wanted to hear it. He was young. But going through Dakota's stuff, I do realize that in May of 2019, I do believe that he surrendered. And I do believe that he surrendered his heart. And I do know that when I get to heaven one day, I am going to see my son. And through our story, it's ugly. There's nothing sexy about it. There's a lot of hurt. It's just ugly. But the year after Dakota died, and I had an opportunity to just sit down and relive everything that we had went through in 10 years, there is without a shadow of doubt that it's a story of redemption. There's no doubt in my mind that God carried us when I couldn't carry myself. There's no doubt that in May, when Dakota, a junkie, a criminal, whatever the society wants to label him, I know that he, like the prodigal son in the Bible, said, God, please forgive me in all of my sins. And I know that God did that. And so when my heart is broke, I have to allow myself to think of, the beautiful part of the story and the redemption of it. And I'm just so grateful that I get a chance to still wrap my arms around people who are struggling with drug addiction or just life in general, and tell them that, you can do this. And as long as you're still free and you still have your freedom, that's more important than the people, places, and things that you're hanging around with. And to be able to be a sounding ear for moms who have kids in prison is very important to me.
Oh my gosh. Vanessa, I'm so happy you came today. This story just touches me in so many ways. I want society to understand and just listen to her words, because this is what happens. This could be your child. It happens every day. There's so many mothers out there right now. Their children are going through the same thing, either sentencing process or they are incarcerated. You know how I feel about the juvenile justice system. I'm new to this. I had no idea. Juveniles that are getting sentenced to life without parole, life after life sentence. I mean, come on, let's do this better, guys. That's unnecessary. And by the way, if you don't understand, when she was talking and she said that her son was given the 20 years, and it was consecutive, that means it goes, you do 20 years, then you do 20 years, then you do 20 years. It's not, you got 420 years and we're going to run them concurrent and then you can just do 20 years. It's not like that. And that happens every day. What is this? And I love that you said, you never downplayed his crime, and he did need to be punished. And that's exactly how I feel. And society first feels is there is a punishment, but let's go on from there. Let's do it correctly. Let's move forward. Let's do the restorative justice, the rehabilitation, and all of that. What you mentioned about the Hawaii, right before we were talking about that, I love that because it was a 3-year program, right?
Very rare.
Yeah.
And they will not turn people away for their inability to pay. It's just, you've really got to look it up. They focus a lot on, obviously, what makes you use drugs, but their primary focus is giving you tools to be a productive member of society when you get out.
I see people that have had a long addiction and they're finally at that rock bottom and they're ready, or incarceration has made them ready. 3 years, it enables you to be there, be around people that will help you and enable you the right way, give you tools. And I always say that 6 months, a year, 18 months, it's not enough.
I know.
It's not enough, because I was an IV user. And I feel for you. I feel for all the parents. I want every single person to check out Vanessa's Facebook page, and it is called From Prison to Paradise. How beautiful is that? From Prison to Paradise. I want everybody to check that out. Also, like and subscribe. This is going to be put up on YouTube. Vanessa, I know that we will have you back on. We have a lot more to talk about, and we'll be seeing each other in the future.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story. You have no idea what that meant to me, for you to share that, because I know that you still hold that tight, the story and sharing it. And I appreciate you doing that on my platform.
I'm just so grateful for you for giving a voice to so many people behind the razor wire. Dakota used to tell me his biggest fear all the time was being forgotten. And it's people like you with a platform that will ensure that their stories will not be forgotten. And I'm so, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful.
Well, thank you. All right, I got to stop this crying. I got to go on. Vanessa, we will talk shortly. Everybody, I just want to thank you so very much for joining us today. This has been so special to me. Big squish tears. All of this, the addiction, being over sentenced, it's not right, people. These are your family members. These are your sons, daughters, nephews, nieces, aunts, moms, dads. We can do better. Check out Pure Prison. Also, like and subscribe on YouTube. We will see you soon. And just remember, it's peace or pain. Every choice is your decision. Choose wisely.